What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Excited to be back here in the studio. Got Pete about to hop on in a minute. A lot to talk about. Latest on the number one player in the country, Jackson Cantwell, who's feeling good. He did that Oregon visit. Georgia's on the way. Then a decision on May 13th. Where does Miami stand in all this? We will get into that. Plus, who is wide receiver one on this team? Is there a wide receiver one? We'll break down that position now that we know how the portal dust has settled a little bit first. First, let's talk about some guys that are always on top. Number one, that is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
D, good morning. D, I'm going to need you to do one thing for me as the producer here. I need you to bring that mic up a little bit. It's like flat right now. There we go.
How we doing?
I think it should be better. So there we go.
What's up to the Smith family? Got a lot of people in the chat already. But yeah, man, it's good to be back. Still a little rusty, as you could see. But,
yeah, you sent me a text at 1:19 a.m. So I'm guessing your clock's a little off.
Yeah, still working on that, but excited to be back, man. Get the flow of recruiting. It's funny, like things seem a little quiet now, but like based on some of the conversations we're having off air, I think business is about to pick up, and we got the number one recruit in the country deciding soon. We got a lot of questions at receiver we want to get into, and as always, man, the chat's rolling. Canes baseball, we'll call it a sweep this weekend of NC State, winning the first two, and then the third one they were winning got canceled because of the rain. I know you were out there.
Dude, I'm bad luck. I've been to 2 games this year now. I went to the first game against Duke that they got smoked in, and then I went yesterday in the rain out. So it was looking good, but yeah, unfortunately couldn't get that one in.
Yeah, I was there on Saturday. Saw a lot of Canes fans. Shout out to my man Killer Kane. Had a lot of fun. Just meeting different people out there and seeing the vibe around the team. Just the parents, the team itself, everybody is feeling good. Not just because they're winning, it's a real close-knit team. So the fact that they're winning after dealing with adversity, sticking together, I know they care a lot about their coach. So that was looking bad for a second there after that first Duke loss where they got smoked in the opener. And ever since then, it's been ACC win after ACC win after ACC win. So really love what's happening there in Coral Gables, and hopefully they can keep it rolling. Big game against FIU on Wednesday at the Light. There's been a little series has been a problem for them this season, right? Midweeks, these are tough midweeks against good local teams to play year-round. So let's see if Miami can get over that hump and then keep rolling in the ACC, because they are as hot as anybody in that conference. In fact, they are the hottest team in the conference, now having swept the other hottest team in the conference in NC State.
Yep, without a doubt. Got to keep it rolling now and keep that excitement going at the Light.
Yeah, man, but excitement is always there in recruiting. So let's just jump right into it. Number one player in the country, Jackson Cantwell. For those who don't know, 6'7.5", 300-pounder out of Nixa, Missouri. Springfield. I had a Springfield guy next to me on the flight from Japan. I was talking to him, trying to get the scoop. He says that's like the big story out there where this guy's going to go. He's on local TV all the time. Talking to some sources. Well, first, let's get to, he did an interview coming off the Oregon visit with Kane Sport and On3. And what he said was basically, it was great seeing Mirabal visit him. Mirabal visited him in person, unofficially, just flew up to Nixa, Missouri after the Oregon visit just to check in. And he had some interesting comments. Said, great seeing Mirabal. This team is the most committed to O-line development because the head coach is an O-lineman, which again, you hear him talk. That's what he says he cares about most is O-line development. And he keeps pointing out Miami has the best O-line development because of not just Mirabal, but Cristobal being the head coach. None of these other guys are offensive linemen. No matter how great they are, that aspect is what it is. The other thing he said, which I thought was very, very interesting, was, I'll be honest, Miami is recruiting me the hardest right now. Obviously, it's not the end-all, be-all, but there's something to be said for that. I hear from Coach Cristobal every day. I hear from Coach Mirabal every day. Like I said, they're the only program that left in it for me that has an O-line guy as their head coach, so I know they'll prioritize that. So this is what he's saying in the media. Obviously, everybody's kind of waiting to see what happens when he visits Georgia here in a few days, and then making his decision on the 13th, which I guess is a week from tomorrow, so next Tuesday, he'll be telling everybody where he's going to go to college. And the buzz that I keep hearing, and Pete, I know you're hearing similar, is that Miami feels very, very good about the relationship with Cantwell, about the plan they've set forth for him from a development standpoint, and just all the different fits. I can tell you, I listened to a 15-minute interview that Cantwell did with the Springfield local guy that he's known, like the beat writer he's known since he was a little kid, breaking shot put records. And when you hear that interview, on top of hearing what sources are telling you, this guy's not that worried about track. He knows he's going to set records in high school. He knows he's going to set records at whatever school he goes to. He, from what I'm seeing in that interview, is laser focused on O-line development. Everything he says shows that he knows Miami's the best place for O-line development. And again, when I talk to Miami, this has been the case since, since late February, when we first started talking about this in the bank. And I believe we were the first to really say, hey guys, pay attention to Jackson Cantwell. I know Pepe is the guy everybody's focus on Cantwell. Confidence remains from everything I'm hearing, Pete.
Yeah, I've heard similar as well. And not only is he someone who development is a big thing for, but like I think he's someone who football IQ wise is there, right? And someone who, like, in terms of picking up a playbook early and all that, as a player, I think there's going to be an adjustment. The speed of the game is going to be different, right, at the next level. But a few weeks ago, then you have the air and the visits coming into play. So I think when that happened, obviously Miami still felt like they were in a good position, but as these weeks have played out here, I don't think anything has necessarily changed for in their perspective.
Yep, that's what I've been hearing. And if you look at the player, the prospect, we talked about him a bunch. We'll talk about him in the week here leading up to this decision. Number one player in the country, number one tackle in the country, still raw to a certain, probably more developmental than your average number one player, but the upside's immense just because he's got the length. He's really not that heavy, meaning like he's got a lot of weight still to gain when you see him in person, you see his dad. But in terms of the power he has, it is unheard of. I mean, he's the best thrower in the country. We had Jalen Rivers, who just got drafted here by the Bengals and was a great player for the Canes, state champion in the shot put. So state champion shot putter. And Cantwell was throwing further than him when he was in 8th grade. Okay. So this guy's a whole nother level of power through his hands, just able to strike people and move people. So you take that, you take the length. He tested well in the movement stuff. Former tight end, former basketball player, not like an elite athlete in terms of movement, but good enough, I think. And then you talk about the development with Mirabal and the fact that Cantwell is really smart. I think it was like a 33 ACT pretty early in his high school career. And you just hear him in interviews. This guy has a plan for getting better. His parents are Olympians. I mean, he knows this is a serious deal to get better. So combine all that together, and you have a developmental prospect with first-round upside who you think is probably likely to hit that upside barring injury because he knows how to work, he's smart, and hopefully he has the best offensive development team, offensive line development team around him, which would be the Canes. And this was a great stat, Pete, that Canes posted on our board. 7 million posts and counting on CanesInsight.com. Sign up today if you haven't. The best free info, the best discussion, the best everything, most active Canes community on the planet by far. So listen to this, Pete. So this is the number one offensive tackle in each cycle since 2011. And so starting with 2011, which was, I mean, almost 15 years ago at this point. Crazy. That was like right before I met you. So here we go. Cyrus Coanjo to Alabama, 2nd round pick. DJ Humphreys to Florida, 1st round pick. 2013, Laramie Tunsil to Ole Miss, 1st round pick. 2014, Cam Robinson to Alabama. Mario Cristobal signed him, 2nd round pick. The only bust on the list, Pete, where do you think the only bust on the list went to college? If you had to guess, what school produces the most busts every year?
University of Florida.
2015, Martez Ivey, undrafted free agent. 2016, Greg Little, Ole Miss, 2nd round. 2017, Alex Leatherwood, 1st round. 2018, Nicholas Petit-Frere, 3rd round from Ohio State. 2019, Alabama, Evan Neal, 1st round. 2020, Broderick Jones, 1st round, Georgia. 2021, J.C. Latham, 1st round, Alabama. This past year, Kelvin Banks, 2022, 1st round, top 10 pick. So of the top number 1 ranked overall tackles, 7 first rounders, 3 second rounders, 1 third rounder, and then the bust that went to Florida. So that hit rate on number 1 OT is like insane. And then you look at this next draft, the number 1 and number 2 OT, depending who you like, what list you had, was Caden Proctor for Alabama and Francis Mauanoa for the Hurricanes. I think both those guys are going to go in the first round. So whoever you had stacked number 1, either one of them is going to be a first round. So point being is this is a position where you want to get that number 1 offensive tackle.
Yeah, the hit rate is obviously very good there. And look, it's such a traits favored position that unless they're an absolute head case, right, and they aren't doing what they're supposed to do, they're going to get opportunities, right? So that's and as we just saw here, most of these guys were first or second round draft picks.
So
I want to get to this question, when it comes to Cantwell, that Nathan said, is he was asking about why Will Fong put in a prediction for Georgia. Obviously, we don't have the reasons why he did that, but are you more worried about Georgia or Oregon at this point?
Georgia, just because the next visit, so there's that level of uncertainty, to the process. I would say that. I think Miami's edge is going to be the same edge no matter what, which is the offensive line development. And Georgia put in guys in the pros this year. They had a bunch of guys drafted, no first rounders, but they had like a few third rounders on the offensive line. If I'm Cantwell, I'm saying, why are you guys one of the worst running games in the country when you had all these guys drafted on the offensive line and running back drafted high? You were in the hundreds in the run game. So something didn't add up there. Carson Beck got hit plenty, obviously got injured. So something was wrong up front. So is Curry Smart developing, and Stacey Searles, who, we saw him struggle down here, are they developing offensive linemen, or are they just bringing in the best offensive linemen in the country and then, turning first rounders into third rounders, right? Who don't produce consistently to their talent, which is what you saw this past year. If you look at some of the guys that got drafted, Broderick Jones, Amarius Mims, those guys were they were just getting drafted off talent. It's not like they were coming in super polished.
Isaiah Wilson, same thing. He was drafted and he was a huge bust.
Huge bust. So is Georgia putting in pros because they're developing pros, or are they just bringing in the best guys and, the body type alone is going to get you drafted, but you're not necessarily coming out as polished as you should be. Penei Sewell, not only was he drafted top 10, he is the best player. So, Jackson Powers Johnson, last year, second round pick to the Raiders, he came in and started and was good. So these are guys that are going to the NFL and playing well. So, we'll see how this decision goes. But if I'm the Hurricanes, and based on everything I'm hearing and everything you're hearing, Pete, there's a lot of confidence. Now it's just about kind of getting through that Georgia visit.
Andrew asking if Miami's NIL money will be on par with UGA and Oregon. Look, I'm not going to get into numbers, but I don't think Miami would have even been in this discussion if the money wasn't in that same range.
Yeah, Drew Rosenhaus is his agent, so Rosenhaus has got the thing all set up. He's down here, so I don't think there's any secrets to this process from that standpoint.
He's the number 1 player in the country at a premium paid position. Wherever he goes, he's going to command a large number. And I think if you're talking about finalists, man, these schools all really want him. I think the number is going to be pretty similar for each of these places. It's going to come down, which is, I think, kind of, and this is a bigger discussion for another day, D, but this is, I think, recruiting is going to get back to the basics at the end of the day of, what are you actually offering me in terms of the development side of things? Do we have a good chance to win games? What does the offense look like? Because at the end of pretty soon here, these numbers are all going to look very similar in terms of these offers for these guys. And I think, talking about the number 1 player in the country, I don't think the numbers are very far off for each of these schools.
Yeah, I don't think that'll hurt Miami. If anything, it'll help Miami. By the way, appreciate you here, Jacoby. Everybody like and subscribe to the show. We got a bunch of people on already. Interest has been hot in the portal here in recruiting. I feel like the offseason is even better than the season when it comes to action. And we got a whole offseason plan, a lot of different kind of content, interviews, just recruiting stuff. will be dropping the bank pretty regularly here now as we get into the hot and heavy recruiting period. Had the unofficial visits, which went very well. You got Cantwell on the 13th. Now, if you start on May 13th with the number 1 player in the country, this recruiting season should be, pretty nice. And if I'm bringing Jackson Cantwell down after his commitment, Pete, he's 300 pounds. We're trying to beef him up a little bit. You know where we're going. And it's going to be the Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion, Islas Canarias Express, the number 1 Cuban restaurant on the planet. 40 plus years. I missed it over there in Japan. They had, I was eating baby squid for breakfast. It was great, but you missed the classic Islas Canarias Cuban Express, located again right there in Dayland Mall in the dining pavilion. Whether you want breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee, empanada to go, just a croqueta box, tequeños, anything that you want, they got. But of course, it all starts with the fundamentals. It's like football's blocking and tackling. Cuban food starts with the croqueta as the fundamental, and Islas Canarias is number 1, voted every single year in that category.
There you go. You see the menu right here. And got the kimchi pork there.
That's right. That's right. East to west, baby, with the kimchi pork. I know Johnny Lagoon, my man, that's one of his favorites. Gave me the great recommendations there in Japan. Appreciate
Here we go.
you.
Kane's comeback tour said finally made it down to out west one. Was so good.
There you go. The OG. The OG. It's a pilgrimage. Like I always say, Anthony Bourdain, noted, chef, out there to Miami to try the world famous croquetas.
So you want to get into
Trenton Breeze? Aren't you at school? What's he doing out here?
School's different than it used to be. There's iPads and laptops and phones are allowed. It was a no-no when we were in school.
I'm glad the Kentucky public school system hasn't banned Kane's Insight yet.
Not yet, at least.
So
you want to get into this other discussion here?
Yeah,
in terms of wide receiver.
The finals week. Study up, Trent. We need you. We need you for this recruiting season. You can't be in summer school, man. You got to step up.
Yeah, we need you eligible.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of the receiver position, I want to tee up this topic, which is, who's the wide receiver 1? It was well documented. We said on the show that Miami's goal going into the offseason, let's just start after the Pop-Tart Bowl, right when the portal started getting going. Really before the Pop-Tart Bowl, when the portal opened, it was like mid-December, right?
Yeah.
So Miami's goal at that point was to land a wide receiver 1. They didn't have the quarterback set up really until late in that winter portal. I think that hurt them in that time period. You had guys like Eric Singleton who visited, who I keep saying that's like the ideal guy we should have had. I think we would have had if we had Beck. Barian Brown, who went to LSU. These are speed guys with production against good competition. Didn't get those guys because we didn't have the quarterback. Get the quarterback set up. Now we're all locked and loaded for spring to get a wide receiver 1, but a wide receiver 1 doesn't jump in the portal. So the goal was to get a wide receiver 1. There was no wide receiver 1 added, so that was a miss, right? If you're just objectively looking at this, what you're trying to do, this is what happens. You did add Keelan Marion, who I've been studying a lot and watching a lot of film on him. Interesting player, the wide receiver out of BYU, 6 foot, 200 pounds. He was actually identified by Pete Nakos today. He did an article, which spring transfers will have the biggest impact. He had Marion number 6 ahead of guys like, Ott, Pena, a lot of bigger names. He actually had this guy number 6, which I was surprised by. That puts him in pretty good company. We'll see if that bears out. But there's a lot of love for Keelan Marion kind of in the scouting community, the agents, the personnel guys who are the sources for On3 and 247. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But, really watching Keelan Marion, what I see as somebody who is very physically strong, stronger than I thought. He's 6 foot 200 and he looks it. He signed in 2020. So he's extremely experienced just as a college football player. Obviously, All-America kick returner last year, two to the house. What caught my attention was he was running the ball a lot towards the end of the year. If you look at the last few games, he was getting 2, 3, 4 carries a game. So they were using him on those jet sweeps, and he has that body type at 200 plus to handle that. And I thought he did a really nice job on that. And he's fast too once he gets going. So I really look at him more, I don't know, as like a Cordell Patterson type. Not saying he's that good, but I'm saying that kind of guy, not the most natural receiver, but somebody that you want to get the ball to because he's so big and he's so athletic, and of course the return stuff. So I think it's going to help. I don't know if he's a wide receiver one. Tony Johnson from Cincinnati, talking to people around the program. People really like Tony Johnson. You got Tony Johnson, Malachi Tony. You got a third Tony. You might have an R&B group. Tony. Pete, I don't know. Was that your era? You were probably not even an embryo.
I've never heard. I've listen. I'm obviously not very caught up on a lot of pop culture stuff, but I have never heard that one.
All right, let us know in the comments if you remember Tony. I'm sure there's more people in my age demographic that do. But so you're 2/3 of the way there with Malachi Tony, the freshman from American Heritage, and then Tony Johnson, the slot receiver from Cincinnati, originally from Ocala. And I think it's a good mix. So what I like about that position is Tony Johnson, former walk-on, academic scholarship guy for FAU, ends up going at FAU, getting on the field, playing, and then transferring to Cincinnati, leading them in touchdowns this year, producing at the Power 4 level. Not like a super, like 1,000-yard Restrepo season, but, 400-plus yards and I think 6 touchdowns. So he was productive. Putting him in the slot gives you some insurance and allows Malachi Tony to really develop at his own pace. And the hope is that Malachi Tony takes it by the horns and just explodes like we've seen freshman wide receivers do. You saw him in spring. He was the best receiver in the spring game by far. He did that consistently in practice. The off the field stuff with Tony is elite. Work ethic, commitment to the game, clean, all the stuff you want. He has all that, similar to Jeremiah Smith, different bodies, but similar kind of here between the ears. So that's a position that you have insurance with Tony Johnson and then upside with Malachi Tony. But really, Pete, to me, and I'll let you kind of give your thoughts on this player. I think ultimately, if we're talking about wide receiver one, it's going to come down to the health and consistency of JoJo Trader.
Yeah, I think you could also make an argument. I thought when you said health, you were going to go with CJ Daniels as well, just because I think the body type is closer to what Horton was, and I think if Horton was still here, would be receiver one. When we talk about receiver one, we got to really define what that means first, right? Because I think Daniels, if healthy, could lead the team in receptions, but I think Trader would be the wide receiver one in terms of putting the most scare into a defensive coordinator, the ability to get the ball in his hands and make something spectacular happen with it. I think that upside is there with him, more so than others. But if Daniels is healthy, I expect him to be the leading receiver on this team.
So Arab says, forgot about Ray. Yeah, that was me always thinking about the shiny new toys there and not thinking about the guy who's been here. So I apologize. Yeah, Ray's in that slot mix as well. So that's a healthy competition there with some insurance, in my opinion. So you got candidates there, but if you're talking about upside and guys that if they step up and it hits, it goes all the way. Tony and Trader to me, but you mentioned Daniels, Pete.
But I want to get to this comment real quick, D, because I think this has been kind of like a common question that people have had or concern. Trevon says, our problem is always getting receivers. Do you think we should focus on developing JoJo so that we can show recruits down the line we can develop receivers so that we can prove to others we can? I don't think these are mutually exclusive things. Just because you're bringing in other receivers doesn't mean you're not trying to develop JoJo. And I don't think it's necessarily a question about JoJo. I think, and we said this the other day, D, but a Tony Johnson to me is more of a replacing a Shamar Kirk. Could he be better than that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, Miami played 4 receivers last year because there were no injuries. These guys were experienced players. JoJo Trader was someone who was banged up for a good portion of the season, came in that Cal game, had a drop. We saw by the end of the year, I think was more comfortable, was ready to go in that bowl game, looked good. But we got very lucky at receiver last year. You were healthy there, and you got to build that depth towards the bottom part of the roster as well. It's not just grabbing yes, you want to get the top players And like we're seeing here, Keelan Marion, one of the better guys of the position available. You can make the argument the best available,
Highest
right?
rated.
Yeah. So, and this isn't us. This is not our opinion. This is what the ranking services says, right?
Yeah.
So this is not like, I'm not saying that he's the answer, but you went out and you got the highest rated guy at that position, at the position of need. Would you want a surefire first round pick, game breaker, proven Eric Singleton type? I'm not saying he's a guaranteed first rounder, but has that ability? Yes, you would love to do that, but that was not available right now. So it's not saying that there's not an issue that they don't have that guy in place already, right? They've had other opportunities to do that, but yeah, I think going back to the question, I think CJ Daniels has a better chance to be that guy than people might realize.
Yeah, in terms of CJ Daniels, I wanted to touch on that because he is proven beyond a shadow of doubt that he can be a contested catch receiver and a just reliable hands guy. Even at LSU last year playing hurt, he was still very reliable in terms of his hands, in terms of contested catches. That's really what he's guaranteed. I don't say no one's guaranteed to do anything, but you could bet pretty good money that he's going to do that and be good at that role. He did it at Liberty, did it at LSU. If you look at like the catch rate over his career from like Pro Football Focus, it is borderline elite. So he's not a guy that drops the ball. He knows how to use his body. He's a bigger guy. I saw him in practice make one of the best catches I've ever seen. One-handed catch, just starting to come back from his surgery. That's really the question. At LSU, he played hurt, had a bad foot, got surgery, missed most of spring, came back at the end of spring, made one of the greatest catches I've ever seen, made some other plays, missed some plays, still kind of getting into the flow of things. I feel good about the floor. I think what Horton gave you last year from a contested catch, being strong, just using his size and being reliable in big games, big boy opposition, I think that Daniels can give you what Horton gave you last year. The question is, I think Horton probably has more in the tank as far as being a deep threat that you're going to see here at Alabama. So he's going to take another leap. Can Daniels match that leap? And I think if he plays with the health he played at Liberty, yes, because he was dynamic, 20-plus yards a catch at Liberty his last year. So the question is he going to get to that level of speed? If he does, I agree with you, Pete. I think he could be the wide receiver one. If he's not all the way healthy, which again, I just don't know because he just started coming back from the injury at the end of spring, then I think more of a possession guy, and you need someone else to be that spectacular guy.
Fresh 3542 asks, do we play 5 wide receivers to 6 to make everyone happy? Look, man, this isn't about making people happy. It's about playing the best receivers. Could there be a 5-6 person rotation there? For sure. But, and again, you had very reliable players there as well. You had you had Jacoby George, although he had his moments, right, was overall, I thought, a reliable receiver for Miami.
Yeah, good college receiver.
Last season, right, outside of the the penalty stuff. Sam Brown was not reliable last year. Upside wise, had a lot, but who were you going to play over him last year? As we've gotten in this discussion,
probably Trader.
Yeah. But again,
he was hurt.
Hurt, and like he had chances. He didn't necessarily like do anything crazy with it. I think he needed that year, right? And we say this all the time. The coaches are there in practice. They see what's happening in practice. They want the best players to play too. There's a lot of conspiracies about biases towards certain guys. They want the best players to play. They want to win games, right? OJ Frederick was the best player at his position last year, so he started as a true freshman in the Swamp. The best players will play. I don't think it's about keeping everyone happy. If they deserve to play, they'll play.
Yeah, I agree. So real quick, I want to get back to wide receiver, but we got a question from Stephen Aveo. Appreciate your support as always. How do you see the DT4 and linebacker rotation now? I think Miami could still add a defensive tackle, like a depth defensive tackle. So watch that position. That's the one position I could see. You're still Muhammad Troy and Keontae Scott are still out there. There's still those are still both possibilities. Just college football free agency stuff. But I think those are both possibilities. But I think Miami would like to add another defensive tackle if they can, just into the room. But as far as DT4, Artavius Jones is someone that made a really nice jump in spring. I think in a perfect world, that's your DT4 because he has great ability, right? So you want to bring him along and develop him so he's a starter caliber guy next year. He has that ability. But you also want experience in that room too. You don't want to just rely on it. You're going to play teams like Notre Dame. They're going to want to run it down your throat. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think that's what you're looking at there at that part of the depth chart. Top three, Justice Scott, David Blay, Mon Moden. I think you feel pretty good about those guys with the way Justice Scott seems to be trending as a potentially impact player. He's a top 10 player out of high school. You expect a guy like that to develop into a first-round pick. So trending towards that, hasn't done it on the field. So I'm not saying he's a future first-round pick, but he's doing the things you want in practice to feel good that he's at least on the way to where he's projected to be.
Not to just get, I know you got to get off here in a few minutes, not to get too far down this rabbit hole, the wide receiver thing, but Arab says, disagree, Pete. Look at Ohio State. They rotate receivers. Why can't we do that? The other part of it is all these games were close outside of the first few games of the season last year. D, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You're in these tight games. You're going to be playing guys that you trust more than others. We saw some rotation at different parts of the year last year. Ray had some chances, did not take advantage of them, right? We're excited about him this year, but like I think people forget some things about what happened at certain times last year. And it's like I didn't see someone that absolutely needed to play over the guys who were playing.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Trader's the one that I think, if he was healthier, you see him over Sam Brown. The problem with Trader is he just wasn't physically ready out of high school like a Jeremiah Smith was. So he needed to get his body right. And he made major improvements on his body. And then you saw him in spring, and he was by far the best receiver, I thought. But then he got hurt on his wrist at the end of spring. So if he can stay healthy, I think he's the number one guy. But then you can say the same thing about Daniels. So I think health is a big thing here with a lot of these guys. It's a big summer for all these players.
And Trevon, who had asked the question about developing guys, like, should we focus on JoJo? He said, reason I asked is every receiver who picks Ohio State say the same thing. The development of wide receivers is elite, and most of them come from South Florida, so we have something to prove. That's code for they put out a first rounders every year. That's basically what it is.
And here's what I would say, because I think you're making a good point. I would say we're going to try to have the best receivers we can for the University of Miami. I don't think we're going to try to place one guy to show we can do it. But if JoJo Trader and Malachi Tony become stars, which I think they have the potential to do sooner than later, based on what I saw in practice, then that's going to have bigger effects than just having two really great players. It's going to show other players in South Florida and elsewhere that, hey, you can develop into this caliber of guy. So I'm a big believer in both those two, but it's going to come down to health. In terms of talent, just apples to apples on Green Tree, they are ahead at the same age of everybody we had last year, right? I saw three of those guys their whole career. Talk about Restrepo, George, and Horton. We signed those guys, so I saw them every step of the way. None of them were a freshman like Malachi Tony. And as a sophomore, Trader just has more talent. His good stuff is just on a higher level. He's more of a day one, day two type talent when he's right and when he's healthy.
TJ Preble says, I'm excited for Josh Moore. That's someone we didn't talk about either, but yeah.
He's in the mix. He had a great spring, and Dalen Upshot had a great spring. I thought all three freshmen were really good. We talked about them every single week. And then, Nye Carr was somebody who, when he first got here, he was making plays every day in spring. Then injuries and just kind of not getting his body right. I thought this spring, as his second spring, just kind of stagnated. The freshmen were all rising, and he was just kind of there dealing with injuries, not where he needed to be. But he came back from the portal, jumped in the portal, came back. Now he's a chance to develop. And I think for him, a summer of true strength and conditioning. He's been part of the program now for this is his second summer, but really taking that next step body-wise, like Horton did. When Horton jumped from, a pretty good sophomore with some talent to a grown man junior who was making impact plays and looked the part. I think Nye Carr needs to have that kind of summer to really solidify himself in the rotation in August camp, because he has ability as well. It's just a matter of getting his body right and holding off these freshmen who really stood out in spring when he was, just kind of running in place. He has a talent to be up there with those guys or ahead of those guys, but it's just going to be about having a great summer and putting himself in that position.
Yep, without a doubt. So
and if you want to put yourself in a position to to look like $1 million. Miami Hurricane team store. It's 100 years of Miami Hurricanes. This place has been booming. They had a great autograph signing with some of the young defensive linemen. They're always having athletes come in and out, always having fans come in and out. This is the place to be. We talk about before a baseball game. Obviously, basketball is going to have this place bumping here in a few months. We'll talk about basketball, I'm sure, plenty coming up. But this is the center of the Miami Hurricanes world right now, right there across the street from campus, Thesis Hotel. You can also go online, MiamiHTS.com. Look at that shirt for the 100 years. 30% off site-wide for the end of the school year. So you want to buy some stuff, MiamiHTS.com or in person at the location. 30% off for the end of the school year. Get right for the summer. You don't have to be a student to get all these deals. I think. I can't read the fine print. So hopefully I said it right. I'm seeing it there. Let's see.
No, I think it's
It's for everybody.
Yeah.
It's for everybody, 30% off. And then all year, promo code INSIGHT20 will get you 20% off. You can put that in MiamiHTS.com. You can say it in person. They got a little Canes Insight button at the counter. Shout out to my guy Jeremy. INSIGHT20 at Canes, or sorry, for Canes Insight for us at the Miami Hurricane team store.
We got over 1,200 live here. D, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I had just a quick basketball thing here, D, which is that I expect a couple more hires here potentially this week for Miami. Would expect them to bring in someone, from what I understand, who is a former head coach, has a lot of experience in the game. Not Bruce Flynn. That is, he's not going to be one I'm talking about here. I don't have a name, but someone to be able to have experience around the game, has been, like I said, a head coach. So we'll see who that ends up being. And then I still expect someone else in an elevated like personnel GM role as well to be hired. So I don't know if these are both coming this week, but I expect a couple more hires to be made here on the basketball side.
Yeah, the basketballs is so exciting to me because they're hitting the ground running. But they have hit the ground running. Right? They did so much. They had to build a whole team from scratch. So I wonder what they're going to do now. They kind of get their feet in the ground and say, all right, we got a team. Now, what's the rest of the things we're going to do to build this program? Because it's hard to do everything at once. They've got some pretty big priorities. They had to usually don't come into a job and have to build 1 through 12. So they've been doing that. What number are we at, Pete? I mean, we're pretty
9,
much there.
I believe, right now. After the pickup of the kid from Georgia, Jordan Key, I think his name was. So still have a few more spots here to fill. And I know there was another international kid in the mix. I didn't tell you about this one before the show, but I know there's another international kid potentially in the mix there.
Center?
I don't know what position. I want to say he's Italian. So we'll see what happens there. That could be one. I still hope that they can add a shooter here. The options are more and more limited at this point in the portal because it, could be back of the roster sort of guys who are going to come in probably knowing they're more developmental for this year. But it would be still nice to me if you could add another shooter on this roster.
Yeah, shooting.
And a backup
shooting
big.
and backup big. I think that's where you've done a great job to me of improving the wing length between Allen and really both Allens, because Dante Allen's a guard, but I think he can cover small forwards at aside from the really tall, good one-on-one scorers, which how many of those guys are there? I think he's big enough that he can cover a lot of guys on the perimeter, certainly shooting guards and then point guards as well. And then Allen from Missouri is exactly the body type.
Love that pickup, man. Love that pickup.
And then Sheldon Henderson is exactly the body type you want. So you got two guys that are pretty much prototypical wing size wise. And then Timotej from Slovakia, I think his body type is very much an NBA wing. So you have 3 grown man professional wing body types, which last year you had Cleveland, and was there any Brian Cleveland, I guess, but he was really more of a stretch 4.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Bay had some good length, but was limited offensively with what he could do. And really, the whole team defensively last year wasn't there. Even if guys had individual defensive ability, it wasn't working cohesively there. So just effort as a whole, expect to be effort and physicality Really, that's it's not just being, you gotta have length, but you gotta be physical too. So I think that they've changed that without a doubt. And D, last thing here, of course, all the basketball coverage brought to you guys by Aries Law. Check out AriesLawPA.com. This is my dad. Estate planning, trusts, wills, probate, best in the business. Go check them out. Again, AriesLawPA.com. Plan your future so others don't.
Love it. All right, fellas and ladies, like and subscribe to the show. Sign up, CanesInsight.com, 7 million posts in county. Check out Storm Sessions if you haven't done it already. That's my show with the University of Miami official. It's on the Hurricanes YouTube. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I had a great interview with Francis Mount. I think it was like 40 plus minutes, just getting to know more about him and where he comes from. And awesome kid, awesome interview. It was a lot of fun getting to know him. And then I'm working on my baseball show, a big league show, recording that today with my man Adrian Lorenzo, former executive with the Boston Red Sox. That's been a lot of fun. For all you baseball fans, go to El Big League Show on YouTube and check that one out. And a lot going on, man. Group chat sports, me and Pete covering the portal, covering recruiting, a lot of recruiting stuff going on.
Number one quarterback in the country announcing today, yes. Jared Curtis.
So a lot cooking in a lot of different directions, but it's going to be a fun offseason, man. A lot to talk about. And
these offseason shows, man, they get more numbers than the ones during the season. It never makes any sense to me.
And wait till recruiting gets heated up here because now the portal's closed. Expect recruiting to go up to 100. So it's going to be a lot of fun, man. So appreciate everybody. Like and subscribe to the show. Go Canes.
Go Canes.